Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's meetup. On today's agenda, the local government team consisting of Scott, Lindsay, Chris, and Allison will be providing an overview of the ArcGIS for Local Government 2015 UC release. As a reminder, we'll be recording and posting this meetup shortly after the presentation on meetups.com. And during the meetup, if you'd like to make comments or chat with other participants, then feel free to use the chat pod. However, if you'd like to submit a question to the team for us to answer, then please submit it through the Q&A pod. With that said, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Scott.
Thanks, Heather. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us today. The team's been working hard over the last couple of months to put together our July release, and we wanted to share with you what's coming in that release. So today what we're going to do is spend most of our time talking about the work that we're shipping next week in our July 2015 release. But we also want to spend a few minutes talking about some of the events we'll have at the user conference this year, and ultimately what we're starting to think about for the second half of 2015, and even show you some work that we've gotten started with already. So let's just dive right in. Let's talk a little bit about the July 2015 release. And what I'm going to do is kind of MC the conversation and pass it over to many of our team members who've been hard at work on the individual things you'll see coming next week in our release. But before I do that, let me summarize. What you'll see next week in the July 1st release is there's a whole series of new offerings that we're making available in this release, and we'll talk a lot about those today. We've got some enhancements to the existing solutions we have, like target hazard and cell phone analysis, and other offerings we have. And then what we're also shipping is a complete update of the entire solution to address many of the support and maintenance items that you guys have reported to us, and we'll spend a few minutes near the end of the presentation talking about that. I've mentioned this several times before, but I do want to reiterate it again. On the solution site, the What's New section is a good summary of kind of all of the things that are available in this release, and ultimately you'll find individual release notes on each of the solution offerings on the site. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. And what I want to do first is just turn it over to Chris Pascaglia on our team, who's been working on a new set of offerings for the land records community. And so I'm going to stop sharing and pitch it over to Chris and let him do that. Go ahead, Chris.
All right. So today I'll just talk briefly about some new work that we've been working on with the state of Montana as well as the Nevada BLM office. And what we're calling it for the July release is Public Land Survey Editing. And what it really is a series of tools and a map document to help you manage the public land survey data. You could start with this, so it's a really good start for local governments to establish a really good framework for their tax parcel base. So you can align it to this editing map content and get started that way, and then incrementally improve both the PLSS content by adding new control information as well as better tax parcel information. So that's kind of a good start for local govs. You can also publish the content out into the cadastral national spatial data infrastructure layers that are the standard for the federal government. And like I said, you get a series of things. So what I'll do quickly, and this is just kind of a landing page for that solution. There's a getting started guide, as well as a section for the tools that are included and shipped with the offering. So what I'll do is quickly just I'll jump right into ArcMap here. This is the multi-scale editing map that you get with the solution. You'll also get a series of tools to help you load your content in, so you can actually go out to the CAD and SDI website, download the cadastral framework layers, and then use a very simple loading tool to load that content in. And once you do, you get township sections, quarter sections, etc. as part of the survey framework. And then you can kind of use that as a good starting point, or you could simply just load it into your existing parcel database and improve it by adding new control monumentation and adjusting it. So that's all part of the maintenance workflow. You also get a very simple tool then to publish back out to the CAD and SDI format, which helps you take the authoritative content that you're maintaining and then publish it out. So a very simple set of tools to help you load and then publish, and then of course the multi-scale editing map to help you maintain it. This also complements the work that we're doing on the local side by using the same tools that we use in the tax parcel editing map. So we're using the parcel editing toolbar and the parcel fabric to maintain all of the parcel types. And really it's pointing at the same data set that you might maintain at the local level. So even though this is a different map document to manage only the survey framework, the local government workflows would also point at the same underlying content. So if any adjustments were made to this database on the state side, or on the public land survey editing workflow, it would also affect the local data that shares common corners with that survey framework. So again, kind of promoting both local as well as state and federal government workflows. So that's what we're doing with public land survey editing. And I'll go ahead and stop there and pass it on.
So Lindsay, why don't you just pick it up and take us into some of the work we've been doing on planning economic development.
Hi everyone, this is Lindsay. I'm going to show you one of our new applications. So many of you may be familiar with the Park and Recreation Finder, which was a great application that many of the people in our community, the local government community, implemented. We've actually have a great new update to this application. It's a whole new code base, and it leverages ArcGIS Online as well as the whole platform. And so this is let me introduce the new and improved Park and Recreation Locator. This application is a configuration of ArcGIS, and then it's hosted on your organization's web server. It allows citizens or visitors to the community to look at kind of park and recreation opportunities that are available to them. So whether you can peruse the map and get additional information. You can check out photos if they're available. And if you'd like, you can post a comment about the park. So if it's a really great park and you want other people in your community to know that it's a lovely park and to check it out, you can do that. Also, if you want to, you can go ahead and get driving directions to this park. Simply type in your address and then select the address, and it'll actually route you right to that park. Some of the new features and enhancements are you can search by location, but there's also the ability to search for a park name. So if I know that I want to go to Knock Park, I can type in the name of that park, and I can go ahead and just select that, and the application is going to zoom to that park. Also, you have the ability to look for parks based on activities. So if I know that I'm going to be going to a playground with my niece, I can click on playgrounds, and because she's a toddler, I know that I'm probably going to need a restroom as well. So I can go ahead and select on if there's restrooms available. And when I do that search, it's going to give me all the park options with those requirements. And you can see, too, that it's actually smart, and it knows that I'm in Ottawa. It's actually routed me all the way from Ottawa to Chicago. Sorry, I forgot to turn my geolocation off. So listing there, you can see all the facilities that are kind of available with those things. And so if I select Nike Park, it's going to go ahead and okay, if I go here, I can see that I want to go to Nike Park. There's a button here called Add to My List, and this is a brand new feature of the Park and Recreation application. So if I click on Add to My List, you can see here that it's actually going to add to a little list up here. And if you want, you can go ahead and add many different parks to it. And eventually what you can do is maybe you want to add, maybe I want to add River Park as well. And when I add River Park here, you can see Nike Park and River Park, and I can make a choice. If I go ahead and I select Print, it's going to give me a nice list of items listed here. So you can imagine if you're
if you're going to go to many parks or go to do many things in one day, you can create that list and have that as you're perusing around. Many of us have smartphones, but some people still like to print things out, and this is available on tablet and smartphone as well. So this is the Park and Recreation Finder, and so this is a full update. So if you've implemented the Park and Recreation Finder in the past, it'll be pretty easy to take advantage of this because we use we actually use the exact same data structure, so you just have to do a little bit of changing on the configuration and create a web map on ArcGIS Online, and you can take full advantage of this Park and Recreation Locator with the new updated interface and look and feel, as well as a few of the new features as well. And so that's the Park and Recreation Finder. The next application that we're putting out in this July release is called the Events Calendar. And so the Events Calendar is a brand new app, and it's configuration of ArcGIS Online. Again, it's hosted on your organization's web server. And this can be used by planning and economic development agencies or departments, park departments, or other organizations, as well as tourism agencies or tourism departments to promote events within a community. And there's a couple different ways you can interact with this map. And so I can go ahead and I can just click on an event that's going on, and I can see all the information. This is the farmer's market. And as I check out the description, I can see the farmer's market is running in my community every Saturday from June through to October. There's additional information here as well. And much like the Park and Recreation Locator, there's a concept of this list. So I can go ahead and add this feature to my list. And actually what this list can be converted into a calendar, and I'll show you that a little bit later. So one of my favorite features of this of this events calendar is that I can search by location. So I'm going to type in my address here. And the first thing it's going to do is route me to the closest event to the address I searched. And I can see over here in the search results to the bottom left, this is actually Civil War days. I'm not really interested in doing that, but as I kind of go through here, I see that there's actually a Naperville Ale Festival, which is really interesting to me. So when I click on that, I'm going to get routed to my place to that festival. And again, I can check out more information about that. Live music, that sounds great. I'm available next Saturday on the 18th. I'm going to add that to my list as well. However, I still don't have any plans for this weekend, and I don't really care where that is at in the city. So what I'm going to do is come back out and search, and I'm going to search by date. And I'm going to search for, I was going to say the weekend started on Friday, but I know that's not true. So I'm going to search from Friday all the way through Monday. When I do that search, it's going to show me all the search results that are available for the weekend, unless I've already added those to my calendar. So the Naperville Summer Night Concert Series is happening, and that's happening. When I click on Add to my list, I'm going to see all the events that I'm interested in attending. And because these are all different dates, I've decided that I want to go to all of these events. And so when I click on Add to Calendar, it's actually going to download an ICS file, which is the standard format for calendars. So if you're on your computer, if you're on your tablet, or if you're on your smartphone, those platforms, if you have a calendar on it, which most of those things do, you're going to be able to use that and just download that to your calendar. So if I click on that file that I just downloaded, if I pop out here, that was my test version. If I pop out here, you can see that it's added the farmer's market that's going to happen every Saturday. It's added that Naperville concert series to that as well. And so that's the event calendar, and this is something I really like, and I would love for my city to implement this, because it gives me a sense of location and a map to where the events are, how far they are, and also that great sorting ability and date picking. And so that's the brand new events calendar. This is the first release of this, and we definitely encourage you to get out there and implement it. The next application is the site selector. So this is a site selector application, and this is an update. We released this application in February of this year, and we had a lot of really good feedback from customers. And the feedback that we had gotten was make the UI a little bit simpler and a little bit easier to use. And so that's what we did, and most of our effort was really focused in improving the user experience of this application. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Site Selector, it's an ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS for Server application that's hosted on your organization. And the idea is to help business owners and corporations to find buildings and sites and properties within that area. And as well, what makes this really powerful is it will give you reports on kind of community and business demographic information. So it's leveraging ArcGIS Online geo-enrichment services. So you can see here I've completed a search for buildings. And what we've done is we've enhanced the filters. So you select on area here, and you select, I want a building that is between 0 and 2,000 square feet. I can apply that filter, and it's going to reduce the number of results here in the left-hand side panel. And if I go ahead and select this property, it gives me the ability to download a property information or traffic count profile related to this. We've also updated the UI, so this is kind of a seamless experience. Before we kind of had two different panels here. We're giving you the ability, you can download a report from the site selector. So we fixed quite a few issues that were reported to us, and then most of the updates have been kind of just making it easier and more intuitive to add filters as well as clear filters. So I can go ahead and clear that filter, and it's going to give me all the results I originally had. So it just makes it much easier to kind of select buildings and build reports around the building and site locations that you have. So that's the new site selector. Some very minor changes, but we really feel that they're really powerful and a big enhancement from our last release. And finally, we have the briefing book. The briefing book has been available for over a year now. And in that time, we've worked taking customer feedback as well to get some enhancements into this application. The briefing book application is an on-premise web application, so it's hosted on your local web server, and it leverages your ArcGIS Online account or portal for ArcGIS. And so I'm just going to go through a copy of one of our briefing books and show some of the enhancements that we've added. So the number one enhancement I would say that we've heard from folks is actually to add the print button. So the print button allows you to select print, and it's going to give you a hard copy of the whole book. So that means you can print it off and take it with you if you want to print it out and mark it up for review. So that was one of the number one enhancements, and we were able to get that in there. Something else we heard, because this briefing book is actually designed to be used on a tablet for executives or decision makers, peers, or presentations. So the idea of a briefing book is to generate really high quality reports with map-based information, as well as the flexibility to include interactive content like videos and photos and written text. That's what the briefing book is for. It is optimized for tablets, so for decision makers on the go that want the most up-to-date recent information, they need that on a tablet. And one of the things we heard is when folks are authoring those briefing books for those decision makers, it's hard for them if they don't know what it's going to look like on a tablet. So what we've added is some really nice visual cues. So you can see here, I'm designing this page, and this is the map module that I've added. And you can see here there's an iPad visual cue and an Android tablet visual cue saying, hey, if you decide to save this book, it's going to be beyond the ratio, and that means on the briefing book it's going to cause some scrolling on a tablet. So to fix that, I just had to go up, and then you no longer see the visual cue. You know that your map module's within that range, and so it provides an enriched authoring experience for the person creating the book. We've also added support for smart mapping and labeling, so we're leveraging some of the new features of ArcGIS Online. As well, if you want to, you can create an author-only or a view-only mode. So if you want to have a view of books that only citizens can see or the public can see, you can set that up so there's no sign-in ability, and it's a view-only mode. We also had some enhancements to the briefing book. So we've enhanced the Flickr module. So the Flickr module is right here. And we've eliminated the need for an API key. So previously you needed an API key for the Flickr module. We've eliminated that, so it's a little bit easier to deploy. We have better support for localization. And then we've just kind of had a series of issues fixed related to enterprise logins. So that's the new briefing book, and that's now that'll be available in the July release. That has a significant amount of updates, and we're really happy with how it turned out. And again, too, if you did have some feedback that you sent to us, we appreciate that, and we're always willing to listen. So if you have feedback on any of the other apps, definitely get in contact with us via the idea site or other mechanisms. Talk to us at a conference, and we'll definitely take that feedback and incorporate it back into the product if we can.
So thanks, Lindsay. All right, let me share my screen, and let's keep going on a few other things that we've been working on for planning organizations. So one of the areas I want to just talk about for a minute and just wrap up on is a new configuration of the crowdsourcing applications we're delivering in the July release called Citizen Problem Reporter. And if you're familiar with one of our existing solution offerings called Citizen Service Request, this actually replaces that. And what it's doing is leveraging the crowdsourcing configurable application templates that we provide in ArcGIS Online, and showing you how you can author a series of groups within your ArcGIS Online organization, publish a set of services. So one of the interesting things that this solution provides is not only the way to configure the hosted apps, but we also have a service definition that you can use to quickly spin up a set of problems, and then ultimately author the maps that you need for the reporter and manager apps, and then configure the applications. And you'll see that when you're done, essentially, and I'm not going to talk too much about this because Allison's going to cover it in a few minutes, but you'll be able to quickly configure the crowdsourcing reporter application to be a very simple, what I would call kind of 311 style, or or citizen service request application for people in your community. So it's a real simple way to get started with those applications. So that many of the applications, new applications essentially that we're shipping for planning economic development organizations. And obviously Citizen Problem Reporter isn't just for planning, right? You can author content, for the utilities or public works domain, and essentially the maps you author for that application really skin and make the application work. And Allison will talk more about it in a minute. But let's move on to a new area. We've talked about this a little bit earlier in the year. One of the big areas we've been working on the first half of this year is capital project planning for public works agencies and utilities. And what we'll be shipping in the July release is a configuration of ArcGIS Online to help public works organizations define capital projects, coordinate and kind of sequence those projects, and ultimately develop a CIP. We're focused in this first release on water, sewer, stormwater, and even transportation infrastructure, but these same solution offerings could be configured to support parks and facilities for sure. So let's take a look at what that's going to look like. So I'm going to start with the solution site. Much like the Citizen Problem Reporter and some of the other solution offerings we've been developing more recently, they're really leveraging ArcGIS Online. So you'll see that what this provides, it's leveraging many of the configurable apps that are there. We've actually developed a service definition for all of the layers you need, and the solution site will actually walk you through how to create the groups that you need to coordinate capital project planning, the services that you can author to do that. Just like the Citizen Problem Reporter, we're providing a whole series of service definitions that help you do that. And then ultimately we'll walk you through how to create maps that you can provide to engineers to do project planning on water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure or transportation, to share pavement moratoriums that you may have implemented in your community to restrict cuts within that pavement, how to reach out and coordinate with external agencies like private utilities or maybe DOTs that are doing work in your community. And then when you're done, develop an actual capital improvement plan that can be shared with citizens and other stakeholders. So you'll see it kind of handles the first three phases. As I mentioned, we also are providing a full set of layers to help you get started with it. So if you think about what that deployment workflow looks like, you log into your ArcGIS Online organization, you start to create the groups you need to collaborate and share these maps. You can spin up the services from our service definition and then author the maps. When you're done, what you'll see is a whole series of maps within your organization that are really focused on key users. This first one here is a project planning map for an engineer who's responsible for coordinating projects on the water distribution system. You can see he can use this map to formulate those capital plans and define how much they are, attach any design drawings. Once each individual engineer then develops those plans, they can share them with maybe the public works director or fiscal folks within the community who are responsible for identifying funding sources and sequencing those projects. And they can look at these projects not only based on time when they're occurring, and this is showing an accumulation of projects planned over a period of time, but they can also look at them based on fiscal year and funding sources that are available as well too. So it's a way for them to kind of review the plans and start thinking about how they're going to sequence them. They could also be looking at external agency projects that are proposed for the community at the time and start to use that to reach out and coordinate activities. And ultimately, once those projects are reviewed and submitted to the council for funding or the county commissioners for funding, a formal capital improvement plans created from that. And we're using the story map journal to kind of communicate how you can now put together a really immersive experience that shares all the individual details of those projects with citizens in your community. So that's the capital project planning. This is really the first release of this. One of the things we'll be working on later this summer and early this fall is now, being able to track and report the status of these projects after they are funded, and doing some things to also make it even easier to analyze layers that'll be used in the actual project planning process. So that's the work. The bulk of our focus has been in public works, has been on this capital project planning, and we were working very closely with Tampa and the city of Tampa and some other agencies across the country to define the work we're developing. So next what I'd like to do is turn it over to Allison, and she's going to talk about the work we've been doing on the crowdsourcing apps and kind of talk about how you can leverage those as well too. So let me see, Allison, I don't know why this is. All right, did I stop sharing? Did it stop sharing for you?
I think I'm still sharing from you. Can you guys see my
Okay, that sounds
screen?
good. Take it. Yep.
Okay. Hi everybody, I'm Allison, and today I'm going to be focusing on the changes that are coming to our ArcGIS Online crowdsourcing apps in the release of ArcGIS Online that's coming up in July. I know that Scott mentioned that many of the other changes that we're showing you this morning are coming around the 1st of July, and the online release is actually going to be about a week or two after that. So all three of the apps that I'm going to cover today, Crowdsource Reporter, Crowdsource Manager, and Crowdsource Polling, they're all ArcGIS Online web application templates. They also work in Portal, but they are delivered right now with ArcGIS Online. So I am going to dive right in and start with Crowdsource Reporter. So for those of you not familiar with this application, Crowdsource Reporter is a responsive app that runs on browsers and smartphones, tablets, and desktops. And it's designed for submitting information to an authoritative organization. So these could be in the form of reports of potholes or broken streetlights or other 311 style reports, as Scott mentioned, things that citizens might be reporting to their municipality. They could also be things like power outages or water main breaks that are being reported to a utility, or even things like citizen science reports. Citizens or other people out in the field who are submitting reports on endangered species or invasive species to an environmental group or an environmental agency. So Reporter is currently released. It's available in ArcGIS Online today as a hosted web app template. Right now it's available from the early adopter template group, which I'll show you later. But with the July release of ArcGIS Online, I'm very happy to say it is going to be available as part of the default templates gallery in your organization. So in addition to fully releasing this application, we've made some pretty significant changes to the appearance of the app for this release. Those of you who are familiar with this will notice it has had a major facelift. Previously we had two panels of information, one on the left, one on the right, with a little strip of map in between. And we've taken those two panels and combined them into one over here on the right-hand side and left the whole left side of the screen free for the map. So if I want to look at bird observations, for example, that list of already submitted bird reports is updating as I zoom in to only show me the reports within the current map extent. We haven't changed that behavior. And if I click on one of these reports, it still opens the details screen, but we have really changed how this details screen works. At the top, there's still information pulled from the pop-up of that feature, but we're including the comments in the same window now. You can see people's feedback on this report all at the same time. You can see there's been some testing going on. At the same time, maybe I saw this little blue heron as well. I can upvote it, and I can even submit a comment on the report, and it'll add to that thread of comments. I saw it too. We'll say submit, and I can check out the gallery. No pictures have been submitted of this feature yet, but if there was one, I would be able to see it there. And as I mentioned, this app is responsive. It still skins down really nicely in a smartphone mode. It works on both Android and iOS smartphones. I still have my like, my comments button, and my gallery button, and I also now have the ability to go and look at this report on a map. Another thing you might have noticed in this view is I've now got a really obvious submit a report button. It's here both in the map view and in the list view of features. We've made it a lot easier to submit new reports on layers. It used to be hidden in a menu in smartphone mode and an icon up here. So let's say that when I saw that little blue heron, I also spotted another bird. Let's say it was a barn owl. I can come in and submit a new report. He was sleeping in a tree. Name is required based on the data properties. So I'll put my name in there. And I actually saw him yesterday. And we have synced the extent of this map with this map now. So we're assuming that if you were looking at an area on the map, you probably want to submit a report on that same area. So I'm going to mark on the map that I saw him in a tree there, and I'll say report it. The map I'm showing you right now is using point features, but line and polygon features do work as well. So that's a quick overview of the changes that we've made to Reporter. I'm going to move over now and talk about Crowdsource Manager, which is a companion app to Crowdsource Reporter. So while your citizens or other users are submitting reports out in the field, your office staff, for example, at that city or utility or that environmental agency, can be using Crowdsource Manager to keep an eye on those reports as they come in. They may need to, aside from monitoring those reports, they may need to update them, perhaps change the status from submitted to received or in progress, or they could even use this to assign those reports to another department. So we haven't made nearly as many changes to Manager this release. It's also going from being currently in the early adopter group to being fully released. Most of the changes we've made to the UI are around keeping it in sync with the changes we made to Crowdsource Reporter. So we've styled this panel over on the left to match Reporter's right-hand panel. The biggest functional change we've made is we've removed the geographic filter that used to control what was displayed in the table. So previously, when I zoomed in, this table would update to only show me the records that are currently visible on the map. We heard that that wasn't working for people, so we've removed that filter. The table now shows all of the records that have been submitted for that layer. If you want to restrict what's visible in the table, you still can do that using active features. So I'm clicking twice on these features on the map. I could also click the box over here on the left-hand side of the table to mark features as selected, and then come up here to show only the selected features in the map. And I could zoom to them if I wanted to see all of those on the map at once. So this way you can select the features that have all been submitted against along a particular street or another geographic area that may not match this rectangular shape that we've given you for the map. We've also introduced a concept of an active feature. So this could be a selected feature or it could be an unselected feature. It's the record that I'm showing right now in dark gray on the map, and there's actually a gray box that's been drawn around it on the map. And I know that's not a great color for showing in a presentation, but it is configurable. You could choose whatever color you wanted. So you can only ever have one active feature at a time, whereas you can have multiple selected features. This active feature is whatever feature you're currently editing, or it can be the feature that you want to look at more details for. So I click that. There was a little button over here, if you didn't see on the map. I can click that into the details. So this is drawn from the pop-up configuration. And in this view, you can also see if any comments have been submitted against that feature, or if there are any attachments, if there's any photos or other documents that have been submitted with that. The other functional change we made is the table and the map no longer update every time the extents change. So we've added a refresh button here, so if users are submitting buttons out in the field, you can click the refresh button to pull in all of that new content. So those are the changes we've made to Crowdsource Manager. And I'm going to move over to the third and final application I'm going to be talking about today, which is brand new. Crowdsource polling is the newest addition to the ArcGIS Online crowdsourcing app. It'll be coming out in July, and it will be in that early adopters template group that I promise I will show you in a minute. I know I keep talking about it. So crowdsource polling is similar to Reporter in that it's a browser-based app designed for collecting feedback. But where Reporter is designed for, to use a little GIS speak, it's for collecting, for users to submit features to you. Crowdsource polling is all about soliciting feedback on features that have been published by an authoritative organization. So to give you an example of what I mean by that, I have a polling app stood up here showing proposed zoning changes in the city of Naperville. So Naperville would publish this out with these features to solicit feedback from the community on what the community feels about these proposed changes. So for example, I can click on a feature here on the map, and I can see the information that Naperville has published out. Right here is a little synopsis of that, if you will, and I can click on the gallery and see that they've actually attached the full plan proposal to this feature, and I can go and read that, get a sense for what the impact of this change would be on my community. Maybe I think this is great. I love rock and roll, and having a school of rock down the street from me would be awesome. So I can vote for that, and I can also submit some feedback on it so that other people in my community can see that there's growing body of support for this project. So I'll put my name in here. Nothing is really required. I'll put in an email. And a comment. And I can submit that, and you'll see it'll grow a list of comments here. And right now, I'm using crowdsource polling anonymously, but as with Crowdsource Reporter, there is a concept of signing in using your social media credentials. So I click the sign in button up here at the top, and you can see right now this application is configured to allow signing in through Google+ and Twitter. I could also configure it to allow Facebook. And what that does is stamp all of the comments that are submitted while I'm signed in with the name that's associated with that account. So you could use that to pre-populate this name field, or you could even hide the name field and just have it get populated in the back end. So that's a quick overview of what's coming with
these 3 new crowdsourcing apps. Before I hand it back to Scott, there's a few other things that I would like to point out. One is this early adopters group that I keep mentioning. So how do you find it? I'm signed into my organization here in ArcGIS Online, and I'm going to search for early adopter templates, and I'm going to filter my search to groups. And when you do this the first time, you're not going to get any results returned, and that's because search results are automatically filtered to your organization. So turn that off, and then they'll appear. And if you're working in English, the one that you're looking for is the group that's been created by Esri EN. If you're working in French or another language, you would look for the group that is created by Esri_your language abbreviation. If I open that group up, you'll see that right now it has, when it loads, Reporter and Manager in it. After the July release, these 2 apps will get pulled out, and instead you'll see crowdsourced polling and whatever other early adopter templates the online group is putting out this release. Because these aren't by default available to you in that gallery when you share a map or when you share a group to create a template, there's a few steps you need to take in order to get them there, and they're all outlined in the description of this early adopters template group. 5 quick steps. It's really easy. I know we call these early adopter templates, but they are available to everybody, so don't let the fact that they're early adopter deter you. We've been really careful this release. If you've already built a crowdsource manager or a crowdsource reporter application based on these early adopter templates, your apps aren't going to break as we move into the full release. We've made sure of that. We're just going to push the new UI out to you. We really haven't made a whole lot of functional changes in the back end. It's mostly just facelifts on both of them. And if you want any more information on these applications, there is the solution site. Scott showed this earlier, so it's solutions.arcgis.com. You scroll down to the bottom, there's a tile here for local government, and a link to our documentation at the top of that page. Over here on the right-hand side, there's a little panel for the configurable app templates, which includes Crowdsource Reporter and Crowdsource Manager. And very soon there will be another link added here for crowdsource polling. So that's how you get to the help for those. And another resource I recommend if you're getting started with these is the recording of the meetup that I did a couple weeks ago. So on the meetups page, there's the page with video recordings, and here's the link to it right here, an overview of the new ArcGIS online crowdsourcing apps. I spent a whole hour talking about how you configure these apps and get started with them, so that's a great place to start if you're looking at configuring these apps. So as Lindsay mentioned earlier, please do keep sending us your feedback. Most of the changes we've made to Reporter and Manager for this release are based on comments that we heard from you guys about what you needed in order for these apps to work for you. So please do keep that feedback coming. It's very valuable. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Scott.
Okay, thanks, Allison. Let's see if I can start sharing. All right. So move in here. Start the slideshow again. So let me just wrap up with some things we've been doing as well on the support and maintenance side. You saw a lot of new things and some enhancements to existing apps. And like I said, we're also just continuing to support and maintain the solution offerings we already provide. One interesting thing that I'll point out is that Heather's been working really hard on a whole new set of map symbols and cartography for the solution offerings we provide. And so you'll see in many of the applications that Lindsay showed you today, you'll see new symbols for parks and events, and you'll also see us rolling those into existing solution offerings like MyGov Services and My Health Services on the state side. So that what we're also doing now is making those symbols available via GitHub. So we'll find a way to get this directly linked off the solution site, but if you go to GitHub now and search for solution symbology, you'll find that all of the new symbols that we're building are available in this repo, and you can just download it. And there's some documentation and a README to walk you through what you get. One of the key things I'll point out is that we're really trying to be very thoughtful about how you guys use symbols in the different applications we provide. So you'll see some of the symbols are focused on collector configurations and mobile applications and folks that need to poke at those symbols with their fingers. Other symbols are designed for web maps that can be consumed in browsers or maybe tablet devices. And What we deliver actually are, a whole series of symbols, the raw symbols themselves. Some of them you can modify yourself, and then others are style files that can be used in ArcGIS for Desktop and ArcGIS Pro. So we'll continue to grow this collection of symbology and symbol sets that we're using not only in the local space, but you'll see here across state government, emergency management, and even utilities and parks and gardens. So we'll always be growing this list, and you'll see those symbols being delivered actually in the solutions. But if you do want to download them and use them in other maps that you have in your organization, you can do that. So that certainly has been a big part of our work over the last 6 months or so as well too. In this release, you'll also see we're updating the service catalog that we provide in ArcGIS Online, so you can quickly stand up host services in your organization. There'll be a new release of the information model with release notes. The content in that information model and the changes really reflect the feedback you've given us and the enhancements we've made to support the new maps and apps that we've shown you today. And we're just shipping updates as well to the toolboxes and add-ins. And we've documented in the release notes the enhancements we're making there. And then finally, it'll probably be right after the 4th of July holiday, but you'll see a new release of X-Ray and the Schema Migration Wizard to help you get started. So let me just wrap, and then we can take some questions, Heather, at least on the new stuff, with one final thing, one final enhancement we're making to the solution site in this release. So we've shown you today several of us have shown you the solution site. And one of the big enhancements we're making in this release is a new gallery that not only shows local government content, but also allows you to begin to reach across all of the domains we're working on. So you can see here in the gallery, right, I can see all of the local government content that's tagged. Maybe I want to look at things that are, for specific.
Scott, your audio dropped.
Let's try that, Heather. Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, so where did I lose you?
You just clicked on the ArcGIS or collector for ArcGIS.
Okay, sorry. So sorry about that, everyone. What I was talking about is how you can use the gallery to really begin to discover the content we're providing in the solutions and quickly get access to them. So when I tap on one of these items in the gallery, it's taking me right to the solution site help where I can download the content and read more about it. So it's just a little simpler way for you to discover the content, or maybe a different way is even a better way to say that. The content that we're making available in our solutions. And as I said, what's important to point out is that not only is it the local government solutions, but you can look holistically across all of the different industries we have and maybe discover solution offerings that the state government team, for example, developed that you'd like to take advantage of as well too. So that's one final enhancement that's coming with the solution site, this release. So as I mentioned earlier on, right, everything that we've shown you today will be summarized in the What's New section, and you'll see detailed release notes on the individual items. So, I would encourage you, once the release is available, to really review those and start to think about how you can leverage the content we've shown you today and even the enhancements that we're making. Before we move on, Heather, and close, are there any questions that came in that we should address?
There was one question from Tim regarding the crowdsourced apps. Can the crowdsource manager have notifications set up so that someone gets a text or an email when something is submitted?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've had that question from a couple people actually, and the application doesn't do it out of the box, but that's a perfect use of the GeoEvent extension. And we've seen some people set that up already. So basically, all that the crowdsourcing apps are doing is using feature services. And what you can do is set GeoEvent extension up that every time a new feature is created or maybe one's updated, it triggers a notification to the appropriate person in your organization. But the apps don't do it out of the box, but certainly ArcGIS in its entirety does.
And that's all the questions we have, actually.
Okay, all right.
If you want to continue.
That's good or bad. All right, so let's keep moving. Let's talk a little bit about the events and the activities we have ongoing at the user conference this year, and then we'll close with some things kind of post-user conference. So we have several activities going on at the user conference. There'll be 9 different tech workshops that we have that span different industries and topics across the entire local government space. We have several demo theaters that will really be deep dives into specific applications and topics. And then we have our special interest group on Wednesday at lunchtime, and I'd encourage everyone to come. There's a free lunch for you, and what we'll do is really use that as a way to engage more deeply with the community and get feedback from you as well. And then finally, many of you we've seen over the years at the Solution Island. We'll have that again this year. So you feel free to stop by if you want to have focused conversations or dive deeper into some of the solutions we provide. We'll have members of the team there on a regular basis throughout the week, and then other extended members of the team who may work with you on specific sales engagements and implementation in your own organization. So one of the easiest ways to discover all of the sessions that are available is actually to use the online agenda. So if I were to jump out real quick here and show you that, what you'll see is that if I go into the user conference, to search for 2015 user conference agenda and go into the detailed agenda, I can come in and look for, let's just say, all of the sessions on local government, and specifically I want to see the tech workshops as well. So let's just look at the tech workshops, hit view results, and you can go day by day and see the specific sessions we have on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday throughout the week. And so you'll see there's a whole variety of topics we're covering. We'll drill in deeper to things like public works and the address maps and apps. We're sharing some of these topics with our state government peers. Many of the apps we're building now, you'll see configurations at both the state and local level as they make sense. So you'll see that as well too. So if I go in and just search for those topics and look for the different types of sessions that I'm interested in, I'll be able to find all that information I need and be able to plan my week if you're interested in coming by some of the sessions we have. So that was a quick overview of some of the UC events we have, and what we'd like to do now is just kind of close with our plans kind of post-UC and give you a high-level understanding, now that we're just about done getting this July release out the door, what we'll be working on second half of this year. And I'm just going to summarize this and then turn it back to Chris, who's really going to show you some interesting things he's been working on with some other members of the team. But we're focused on a couple key areas, I would say. One is planning and economic development. We're continuing to drive additional solution offerings, and you saw that today, into our economic development and planning portfolios. We're working on a new application called Photo Survey that I'll let Chris talk about, and then beginning to work with the 3D team on some interesting ideas about how you can visualize regulatory and development in your community in 3D. The other thing that we're actively working on is a new set of configurations of ArcGIS for the elections workflows in your community. Obviously, there's a big election coming next year in 2016, so we want to give you a complete refresh of the election app. So we're actually working on a new configuration of the web app builder for polling places that'll replace our current polling place application, and then beginning to look at how election results can be delivered maybe through an operations dashboard configuration and some ArcGIS Online gallery applications. We're also working in the public safety space on taking the desktop workflows we have for pre-incident planning and special events and making them available in ArcGIS Online. And as we're doing that, incorporating a lot of the additional platform offerings we have now, and you'll see some of that in Chris's demonstration today with ArcGIS Pro and Web App Builder, which I just mentioned. And we talked a little bit about GeoEvent Processor and some of the ArcGIS apps that are coming as well too. So these are some of the high-level plans we have coming out of the user conference, and some of them we've actually already started working on. So to show you a sneak peek of some of that work, let me turn it over to Chris. And before I do that, one of the things I will mention, let me just show this real quick, Chris. while you're getting ready. One of the new things we actually added to the solution site as well on this release is you'll see we're starting to socialize some of these new apps on the site itself with a coming soon designation. So this is one of the things we want to, we've always tried to be very transparent about the work that we're doing. And so as some of these new apps are starting to emerge, we're going to start sharing them, more information about them in this coming soon section. And this is one in particular that we thought we'd share with you today. So Chris, let me go ahead and stop sharing, and then you can take it from here.
Sure, thanks, Scott. Well, what I'm going to do, just to kind of set some context about what we're working on next, is just do a quick PowerPoint presentation, a couple of slides to kind of introduce it. Then I'll jump into the application because we're already working on it, as Scott mentioned. So it's pretty exciting. We're excited about it, and we think everybody will be as well. So what we're calling the new solution is called Photo Survey. Who it's for and why it's important is really about a few main use cases, although we've heard from customers already that they could be using it for other things. But really what it could be used for is conducting really quick, rapid damage assessments after something happens, inventorying blighted properties, which is a kind of a hot topic, especially in kind of the Rust Belt area of the United States and other places in the U.S. and internationally as well. Target reappraisal efforts, so this could be identifying new structures on properties, even the condition of property affecting the tax roll, that kind of thing, and identifying structures that might pose public health or safety concerns. So those are the kind of the main use cases, and we've seen a lot of these property surveys happening across the country, one of them being in Gary, Indiana, Detroit, of course. On the left-hand side, towards the bottom there, you'll see New Orleans. That's who we're partnering with on kind of the early prototype of the application. So you're seeing this happen quite a bit, and how these property surveys are being done currently is a lot of feet on the ground, walking streets, even driving and taking photographs and doing property surveys. So one of the challenges and one of the things we wanted to really help out with is developing a solution that helps you, number one, go and collect the photos more efficiently, and then actually provide a very focused application that helps you survey the condition, or actually you can survey anything about that property, and I'll show you how you can configure the application for many use cases. We also want to simplify the data collection itself, support many different types of inventories and surveys, and even do things like remove bias completely from the survey, and then of course promote ongoing participation. So there's a couple of different ways you can deploy the application, and one of them is really to citizens, and they can actually go in and help perform some of these surveys. Some of the challenges here was we wanted to provide a workflow that utilized many types of devices. We're using a very particular set of hardware to go and actually capture photos, but we wanted to support many different types, like a simple phone with a camera on it that has a GPS, as an example. We wanted to provide a very simple property survey app, randomize those properties, remove bias, and then produce a set of useful information products and dashboards and maps on the other end to help you kind of analyze the content that's being contributed. So those are kind of some of the main challenges there. And this is really just a quick high-level diagram of the flow. So on the left-hand side, you'll see a picture of a vehicle with a camera on it driving around, taking street-level photos, a series of tools to help you process those photos, publish them, and then publish an application that helps you actually do the surveys, but also a series of dashboards and maps to help you analyze the content as it's coming in. So that's kind of the high-level workflow. And what I'll do for the demonstration is first start over in ArcGIS Pro. So we've developed a very simple set of tools to help you process the photos as they're being taken and publish them to a very simple map that's used to configure the application. So the first tool is a very simple geoprocessing tool that lets you identify passenger and driver side photos. So these are photos that we're taking with a vehicle, and the vehicle had a camera-mounted passenger and driver side, and an area where I want to stage the content, a parcel data set because we're going to associate all of the photos that were taken in the field to a parcel, and then a key field that helps me identify those pictures, and I'm using the parcel identification field in this case. So again, this tool is really set up to take photos directly from cameras that were mounted to a vehicle and actually driven around the city, and that's what I've been doing here in Redlands, California. But it could also be, like I said, pictures just taken with a smartphone, or even any camera with a GPS-enabled photo. So that's kind of those are the tools that help you process the data, and one or many photos may be associated to a single parcel. And then once that content's actually published to a web map, what you see is a very similar map. And what I've done here is I've configured the pop-up of that map to present the questions that I want to be asked about those properties. So in this case, is there a structure? Is the lot overgrown? What kind of foundation does the property actually have if it's an improved structure? Any roof damage, any exterior damage? Is there graffiti on the property? And are any of the windows boarded up? And then what you also have are the photos that were actually taken by driving around the city. So you can see here's a property, and every parcel now has one or many photos associated to it. So you can see that. And then from this very simple map with a pop-up configured, we can author the photo survey application. So this is a JavaScript app, and what I can do is just go ahead and log into the photo survey application. And right now it's set up for social media credentials, but we're also planning on having ArcGIS.com credential login as well as anonymous login at some point in time. So we're also working on that. But for this, I'm going to log in with Twitter and go ahead and authorize the application to use my account. And once I've logged in, it presents me with a random photo from that library of photos that I published. And what I can do is actually scroll through the carousel that presents all the photos for that property from start to end. And I can answer specific questions about that photograph. So is there a structure? In this case, obviously yes. The lot does not appear to be overgrown. I can't really tell if this is a slab on grade or a crawl space, but we'll just say it's slab on grade. Doesn't look like there's any roof damage, no exterior damage, no graffiti, and none of the windows appear to be boarded up. And go ahead and submit the survey. So when I submit that information, it presents me with the next random photograph. And then what's really nice about this is when these surveys have been submitted, I can view them on a very simple dashboard. So here's a very simple dashboard that shows me the properties, the same properties that have been showing in ArcGIS Pro, in the web map, in the application. But now I can see them actually on a map, the surveys as they're being submitted. And I can get all the information about which properties have yard overgrowth, which ones have reported graffiti, and all that kind of work. So this would be kind of an internal-facing dashboard that somebody could use to analyze the content as it's being surveyed and submitted, and then make appropriate or take appropriate action. So if it's code enforcement, they can send folks out to those properties that have yard overgrowth and actually post something or knock on the door. Or issue a citation as an example. If it was damage assessment, we could send the proper emergency responders to those areas. We could also identify hotspots within the city where maybe certain neighborhoods are declining in condition and may require help. And so that's kind of how the dashboards will be used. What's interesting, I think, about the application is that you don't really see a map, right? You just see the properties and you're submitting surveys based on those properties. So that's the application. One more thing that's unique about the app is that you can actually, since I've logged in, I can go to my profile in the application and actually see how many surveys I've actually submitted and how I kind of rank amongst others in the community. So if this was an application that you'd want to crowdsource to your citizens to actually go and do the surveys, we've built some gamification into the application to kind of draw them back and keep them going. So that's the idea with photo survey. I'll hand it back for, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, could you just maybe touch on a minute? You talked about we're trying to keep this pretty generic in terms of devices. Could you just talk for a minute about what we use to take the photos and even what the guys in New Orleans were using? Just so people can get a sense for kind of what devices and how much they cost.
Yeah, sure. So when we first started working with New Orleans, they actually developed their own camera setup. They used a Microsoft webcam that kind of mounted to a monitor in your office, and then they tethered it to a GPS device that you could actually go onto Amazon and get that plugs into a USB port. So they were driving around actually taking photographs. They set up the camera to take photos at I think half-second increments. So as they were driving, it was just snapping off photos and then tagging those photos with the appropriate GPS location. So that's one approach. The other approach is what we took here in Redlands, which was to purchase Garmin Verb cameras, which are action cameras that you mount on a helmet, and you can either jump out of an airplane and ride a motorcycle or go skiing with. They actually worked really good for just driving around town and taking photographs. So I mounted those to my van with a suction cup mount, mounted one passenger side and driver's side, and just drove the city. So that's the other approach, and that's one of the ones that we'll probably promote as being kind of a really good way of just getting started. Those devices are relatively inexpensive. They can be purchased for less than $500 a piece, and they support really nice capabilities like having 128 gigabytes worth of space on each device in the field, and you can plug them into the cigarette lighter for power. So there's some really cool features with those particular devices. But it could be a GoPro camera with GPS as well, tethered to it. So there's a bunch of different ways you can gather the photos. But like I said, it could be a Boy Scout troop walking down the street with smartphones taking photos.
Yep.
So I think there's a bunch of different ways to do it, and we'll probably have some preferred ways of capturing those photos and document those as we go forward.
Chris, it's Allison. When we were talking with those other guys the other day, they had a really interesting idea for their city of mounting them on the sides of things like garbage trucks that drive residential areas on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's right. That's an ongoing challenge. So, you know, we're trying to work with New Orleans on what will be the best way to actually take an ongoing inventory. So not just once a year, but you know, once every month or after every major event, I want to go out and take photos. What's the most efficient way to do that? And as Allison said, you know, street cleaners and garbage trucks make sense because they're driving the city daily or weekly at least, and that would be a good way to do it as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. So that was just a sneak peek of the photo survey app, which will be coming later this summer. We'll be showing it and talking about it more at the user conference, and we just wanted to give you guys a little peek at what we were doing. Heather, I think that's all we had to show today. So no need for me to share slides, but maybe we can take any questions that could have came in since we last spoke.
Yep, there's a couple. Adam had a question. He said last October there was talk about expanding the signal inventory to include more features that make up traffic signal system. It was supposed to be released in the spring, but he hasn't seen it updated yet.
Yeah, I think Adam's referring to the signaled intersections map. That's still on the backlog. The features are actually in the information model already, and so it's just a matter of putting together an editing map. It just keeps getting pushed because of the capital project planning and some of the other work we are doing. But it is definitely still on the backlog, and if you want to talk more about it, Adam, and kind of how we could get you jump started on it, I'd be glad to do it individually, even before we release something.
Cool. There's two questions regarding photo survey. David had a question if it would work with video as well.
It's a good question. Actually, the photo survey app itself will not work with video, but you can capture video as you're driving around. So one of the nice things about the Garmin Verb camera is that it has the capability of just streaming video as you're driving, and it also captures a GPS track along with that video. So in theory, you could have a nice track which has the kind of live motion video, but the application currently doesn't support that. But it would be something you could capture as well.
And the other question was from Jeff. Does photo survey integrate with Collector?
Another good question, and it does, because all we're really using the power of the application is a feature service of points. So say there was some action that needed to be taken by certain code enforcement officers to go back in the field and actually gather more data about picture that was taken, they could use collector in the field, and then maybe have a different set of questions based on, or different set of fields based on things they want to capture specifically about it, fill it out, and then bring it back in. So it could be using even the same feature service to do that work. And the operations
And Adam,
dashboard that I showed earlier too was also based on that same feature service.
another question about photo survey from Adam. How are the image files named to associate with them to the parcel IDs?
So what we're doing to associate the photos to the parcel is really through a simple relationship class to a table that houses the photos. So every photo is tied to the parcel by the PIN number. So that's how you identify their relationship. However, there's also a unique name for every photo, and that's really just how the device handles the photos as they're being taken.
Another question regarding photo surveys. It seems pretty popular. It says Chris mentioned that the photos came up randomly in the photo survey app. Is this a configurable option? Is users wanted to go through the steps for a specific neighborhood first?
That question's come up a few times already, and the randomness is really meant to remove community bias between neighborhoods, but we've had that question before. It's something that we're thinking about. It's actually on our backlog currently to remove that option altogether. So if I wanted to walk a street, historic neighborhood, area that I know certain code enforcement officers are assigned to, they might want to walk down the street property by property. So that is something that we're considering as being a configurable option. Alice and I also heard that from a city locally here that wanted to do that, so it's definitely something we need to consider. But any feedback like that is definitely something, and Allison mentioned this in her presentation, it's something we want to gather now. So we'd love for anybody that has requests like that or ideas about how it could be used, please let us know.
Chris, how would you like him to do that? Do you want him to submit it through the Meetup site or contact you directly or even through the GitHub repo? What do you think would be best way for that to happen?
Yeah, that's a good question, Scott. I think probably the GitHub repo at this point, since we are so early on, would be a good place to kind of collect feedback. So I don't know if we want to just show where that location is. Might make sense.
Yeah, go ahead, because it is public already, right?
Yeah, we're actually gathering feedback like from places like New Orleans and others that have been working with us. So if you go to github.com, much like the symbol repo that Scott showed that's housing Heather's work, we also have a photo survey repo that really we're gathering feedback for the app currently. So things like remove the wrapping of images in the application as a simple enhancement request. We also have a series of enhancements from the City of New Orleans that are asking about certain things. The unrandomness enhancements in here as well somewhere. But yeah, if you could just go to Esri Photo Survey, just type in Photo Survey in GitHub, you'll find the repo and go ahead and submit some ideas if you'd like.
Okay, great.
That seems to be all the questions for now. Did you want me to go ahead and wrap up, Scott?
Yeah, I think we're good. Thanks a lot, everyone, for the time today. Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And also, for more ideas, if you have future meetup ideas, we would love to hear them. If you just want to post them on the meetups.com page, that'd be great. And we look forward to seeing and hearing from you, as Scott mentioned, at the user conference on July 22nd. The meetup will be between 12 and 1 p.m. in room 33A. So with that said, have a great afternoon, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you at the user conference.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks. Take care.